seems to be a bit of a mixed bag. We had the current quarter beat on the top and bottom line, yet the forecast was underwhelming. What's your take on this?
Yeah, exactly right. I think we had a great third quarter, in terms of third calendar, fourth fiscal. But we're a little bit disappointed on the guidance here a little bit. It looks to be perhaps indicating emerging market or China slowdowns, and frankly, it's flat. Considering the product mix they have, it's a flat forecast with zero growth in the iPhone.
And Julie, a big change of focus is less on the number of iPhones sold, but the average selling price, which has continued to increase and beat analyst expectations. But how much further can they juice this price from these same consumers?
So far, there really haven't seemed to be that many limits. I mean, if we look at Apple's opportunities in terms of revenue growth, they can either find more customers, and most of the growth in the smartphone market is coming out of markets like Indonesia, Nigeria, and India, where there are, let's say, the percentage of the population that can afford one of their devices is in the high. You can increase revenue, or you can sell more products. And certainly, while the wearables and the other devices are doing well, there is no other it product like a smartphone that consumers really feel they have to have.
And Horace, now these results only show about 2 weeks of the newest iPhone sales, the XR, the XR Max, etc. What do we know about how those have performed so far?
Well, again, the signals are pretty good as far as what we're seeing from sampling on the retail side. But the problem is we just don't know if there's going to be, again, some kind of structural issue in China. We also, as far as the pricing is concerned, yes, it's gone up, but there's still quite a bit of mix out there. The iPhone, the newest XR, has not yet really shown us a lot of data, and the XR is really the driver. Is going to be the driver for China and other emerging markets, I believe. And it's a little bit of a puzzle to me why we're not seeing the sort of enthusiasm from guidance.
Right, we're actually seeing most of the FANG stocks down right now. Apple was the last to report. The hope was that it might lift the tech sector. And what do you think now? We're seeing stocks down. Investors seem underwhelmed. Is this going to change perhaps later in the day?
Hard to say on the whole market. I'm sort of looking at Apple alone. We're seeing a little bit less enthusiasm, I think, from management. We just had 2 days ago new products, meat and potatoes products. These are just the middle of the market. The new Air is a little bit pricier, but it's certainly getting a nice boost in terms of functionality. And not to see that reflected in guidance is a little disappointing.
And now, actually, Tim Cook gave an interview earlier with Reuters, citing some macroeconomic weakness in some emerging markets. Now, in China, there's obviously concern that the trade tensions could be leading to a dampening consumer sentiment. Are we seeing that at all in the numbers? Is there concern about this?
Yeah, so stepping aside from the numbers just a little bit, I think, when you look at Apple and who their target audience is, which does tend to be more affluent, even in markets like China and India, which are some of the larger markets, I think, even over the past 10, 15 years, luxury goods have continued to do well. And so I wouldn't expect to see as much of an impact there, because it's simply when you're targeting an audience as affluent as those are, it doesn't tend to have as much of an impact.
Right. Just want to point out, Cook just now on the call citing about how strong the year was. 2 billion iOS devices shipped, best September quarter ever, 10th anniversary of the App Store. Overall, the quarter actually had the biggest quarterly growth spurt since 2015. Horace, I want to talk about the XR. There seems to be a lot of investor sentiment around this. Why all the excitement when it could be potentially cannibalizing its more expensive products?
Well, the XR is actually still a $750 minimum price. I mean, it's a significant rise over the $600 to $700 price points we've seen in the past for the leading products. So now we're seeing a sort of an uplift in the overall ASP. the product is also not necessarily cannibalizing. I think it's actually very interestingly positioned as a middle product in terms of screen size, which is what most people respond to when they look at the initial impression. It is a very solid product, and that's what surprises me a little bit. Now, I'm saying there's a little disappointment, but let's not forget we're talking about projecting here about 77 to 78 million units sold at an average of $800. So this is going to be still a great quarter. It's just not the sort of growth that we just saw, 20% plus in the top line. We're seeing almost a flat top line going forward here. Again, I'm actually penciling in a little bit of growth on the iPad, a little bit of growth on the Mac as well, single digits, low single digits. But it's not really, the big growth are services and other, which are in the 30 to 20% range, which are doing rather well and will continue to do well. But those are based off of an install base, which is over 1 billion devices, actually 1.3 billion devices out there, and that is where the services growth is coming from. It's just that I think there's a question whether 10R was going to be a home run or not.
Julie, what's your take on that? Is the 10R excitement justified? Will people upgrade for this cheaper-ish phone?
Yeah, and I think you see still a lot of consumers in the market that still may have a 6 or a 7 or an 8 that have been waiting to upgrade to something that's more affordable to them. And I think that, that's some of the target market we see them chasing.
And I just want to point out, Tim Cook talking about the new iPhones being the most advanced ever. They have 7-nanometer chips and are ahead of the competition in technology. And he's quoting reviews on just how good some folks think they are. Horace, you were talking about services earlier. They actually came in under expectations. What's your take on that? Is services not growing as much as expected?
Well, it's doing pretty well, actually. My expectations were in line with what we saw, and we saw about 10 billion quarter. They're certainly ahead of schedule in terms of hitting their long-term targets, sort of $50 billion a year run rate, and that's going to be reached probably next year and ahead of schedule. And that's not a bad story at all. There were some one-off charge or revenues that were not present this year, but overall, I don't think there's anything I can see negative about services right now. I think forecast now, I'm looking at about 18% growth, a little bit less than we saw in the past.